Brian Snitker is officially not returning to manage the Atlanta Braves in 2026. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Wednesday, October 1st. This is your source for news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. Follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. You can also find all of my written work, bravestoday.com, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. We're proudly part of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the FanDuel app today. The fun thing here is this is the second time I've recorded the show today. The first show that I did is now out of date because the first segment was talking about if Ron Washington could return to join a Brian Snitker coaching staff in 2026. Instead, we got the news shortly after I finished recording, as always happens, from ESPN's Jeff Passan, quickly confirmed by the organization that manager Brian Snitker is not returning to be manager of the Braves in 2026. Instead, he is moving into an advisory role, a senior advisory role for his 50th year in the organization. And it's really kind of funny how this whole thing played out, okay? Because going into the year and throughout a good portion of the year, with the team doing so poorly, the common assumption was that Snit was going to be done. His contract runs out after this year, and AA had mentioned back in spring, it was Snit's decision. If Snit wanted to come back, they'd give him a one-year deal. If he didn't, they'd find something else for him. But he's going to be a part of the organization for life, and it's his call. And we just assumed he was going to go because that's what everybody was saying. That's what all the national media, the connected insiders were all saying, is that Snit was expected to retire. And he finally addressed it in early September. And he sounded on the fence. He said he legitimately did not know. He wanted to talk to his wife. He was going to do that after the season. And a lot of the recent talk from Snitker had been, what if, right? He had been talking about, what if they didn't have all 5 opening day starters on the 60-day IL, right? And how you were missing key players for a good portion of the season, right? I think we saw the lineup that had Jurickson Profar and Ronald Acuña Jr. and Austin Riley in it 13 times all year. And so we kind of wondered, is Snit going to go? Is Snit going to stay? What's going to happen? And Alex Anthopoulos was not clear when they asked him. He said, in essence, it's up to Snit, right? That they hadn't discussed it yet. They weren't going to push him, but it was Snit's call. If he wanted to come back, he'd be back. If he wanted to go, he would go. We got the official news from the Braves. So Snit is finishing his career. He had 811 wins. And he is the third winningest manager in Atlanta Braves history. And I say Atlanta Braves history, it's really franchise history, right? He's the second winningest in Atlanta Braves history. Bobby Cox, clearly. 1978 to 2010, 2,149 wins, 557 winning percentage. Frank Salee, 1890 to 1901. This was the Boston Bean Eaters. I actually think it was just Boston for some of those years. I don't think they even became officially the Bean Eaters until after that. Because 1901, they were the Boston Nationals. That's how long ago this was. But Frank Salee, with the organization, had 1,004 wins and 649 losses, a 607 winning percentage. Brian Snitker, 811 and 668, a 548 winning percentage. He was 9 full seasons, right? 10 total seasons. He took over partway through his first year. He won 6 NL East championships, made the postseason 7 times, won the National League pennant and the World Series in 2021. He was Manager of the Year in the National League in 2018, and he was a 4-time finalist for the award. He also, fun fact, won the minor league manager of the award twice. 1999 and 2000, both of those with single A Myrtle Beach. He won manager of the year in the minor leagues twice. But now the big thing here is, what do you do going forward? Okay. You're going to have a search for a new manager. And it is abundantly clear that Atlanta is the most desirable job out there, right? I don't see any other position being nearly as attractive as this one. Think about who you have. The Angels are open. The Rangers are open. The Twins are open. The Giants are open. You could argue that the Giants is an attractive job, and I do think it is an attractive job. But I think if you compare the rosters, you do everything else, Atlanta's going to be the one that people want. This is going to be the job that people are looking to get filled. Like, this is the one people are going to want first. And the question here is going to be, what direction does Atlanta go? Okay. I wrote up some of this back in August, and I was writing about some of the different directions the Braves could go. Because the way that I saw it, there was three kind of logical paths to take for a new manager. Option number one was an established major league manager. And at the time, I talked about Gabe Kapler and Skip Schumacher because neither one of them were currently managing, right? Rocco Baldelli wasn't available. Bruce Bochy wasn't available. Bob Melvin wasn't available. I was looking at the guys who were clearly open and specifically did not want to talk about anybody who was working for another organization. I always feel icky about that. So I kind of broke down Gabe Kapler, Skip Schumacher, okay? The second path was trying to look at an Atlanta man from the Bobby Cox tree, okay? And the obvious name there is Walt Weiss. Atlanta's, he's currently the bench coach. He took the job in 2017. He was manager through 2016 in Colorado. And he never coached for Bobby Cox. Not a lot of the coaches who coached for Bobby Cox are still around, but he played for him. Walt Weiss signed with Atlanta in December 1997 and became the starting shortstop. He was an all-star in 1998, and he eventually lost his starting job as the shortstop in 2000 to Rafael Furcal. So he played for Bobby Cox. And Walt Weiss would be the obvious continuity name, right? He would be the guy that it's like, okay, they clearly want continuity. They probably would keep Rick Kranitz in that case. They probably would keep Tim Hires in that case. They probably keep Eddie Perez in that case, right? I also looked at Mark DeRosa because very, very little managerial experience, but he did play in Atlanta, was drafted by the Braves, left in free agency in 2005. And so I'm not on board with this, right? He has barely managed. He led Team USA to a silver in the WBC in 2023, and that's like really it. I also talked about some of the veteran coaches that Alex Anthopoulos already knows. John Gibbons is somebody that AA hired in Toronto. I don't think it would be Gibbons. He did hire Gibbons again to work in the scouting department in like 2020. Before Gibbons, he worked here for 3 years before he left to go be a bench coach in New York with the Mets. So I don't think that would be it. And in the article, my conclusion was, if you're trying to make every subset, every stakeholder here happy, if you want the fans to be happy, if you want the players to be happy, if you want the front office and ownership to be happy, there's a guy that can check every single box, and it was David Ross. From the perspective of, for the players, he's one of them. He's played recently enough that he understands the modern game, right? For the front office, he's young enough and has played recently enough to understand the value of analytics. One of the big concerns people had about Brian Snitker was like the bullpen usage and how it kind of seemed to ignore handedness. It kind of seemed to ignore which pocket of the lineup you were facing. It was really just kind of predetermined the order they were going to do. And for Braves country, David Ross had that connection to the Braves, right? He played here without being somebody who was fully in that coaching tree, where it just kind of felt like you were running it back like we saw so many times this year with former players, and like you would have that feeling if Walt Weiss was put in as the manager. So obviously, ton of stuff here. It's a lot wider field now that we know who's been fired than we originally thought it was going to be. And so we're going to break that down in full as far as all of the options. Obviously, some of the reporting, once we get reporting as to who is a candidate and things like that, that'll be incredibly useful. But I am absolutely really, really excited for Brian Snitker that he got to make this decision and that we got to have him in Atlanta. I do think that for as much as we have complained about him, I feel like at times this year, ultimately in the end of the day, he's been a really good manager for the Braves. And obviously we wish him nothing but the best. And hopefully it all goes well. All right. In just a minute, here's the regularly scheduled second and third segments we have. We're going to talk about all of the players on the 40-man roster. I mentioned there's 51. And we're going to talk about who's likely gone and who likely stays. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season's here, so FanDuel has offers that you don't want to miss. But if you're like me, you can take advantage of these offers while you're watching these incredible playoff games we've already seen. Just the first day of games, the end of September, were awesome, and now we're in October, and I'm just so hyped. These are great. But the deal, okay, so right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. Really easy. Just pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. There's a ton of ways to do this. You can build parlays. You can try a player prop. You can follow live lines during games. It kind of feels like a safe bet that one, Shohei's probably going to do something crazy. Two, that the Dodgers bullpen is probably going to give up a bunch of runs. And that three, that the stud pitchers are going to stud pitcher. That's what we've seen with Skubal and Fried and Crochet. All these guys yesterday was an awesome day of baseball. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into all of the minutia, FanDuel has something there for you. So, don't wait. Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby. Let's talk about these 51 players on the 40-man roster. Obviously, you got to make a bunch of spots, and you're going to naturally make a couple. So what I'm going to do, and this will kind of be a vibes-based exercise. I don't have a bunch of stats and deep dives into these guys in front of me. It's going to be we're going to go through all of the position groups. Yes, no, what does it feel like? The immediate thought is on this guy coming back or not. Okay? And some of them, I think you're going to have them on a minor league deal to get them back. You're going to have to take them off the 40-man roster with the understanding that if you keep them, if they don't get claimed, that they may get called back up if they do something going forward. So let's start here. Alphabetically, we'll go to the pitchers. There's 30 of them. What's going to happen here? Aaron Bummer on the 60-day IL. I think he's back unless they trade him. Reminder here, his salary jumps to $9.5 million this year. And the thing about Aaron Bummer is he's very good at inducing ground balls. Atlanta had one of the better infield defenses in all of baseball. And even they struggled with converting his ground balls into outs. This was the first season in kind of a while, actually, where his fielding independent pitching and his actual ERA were not more than like a full run apart. So, like this year, 381 ERA, 352 FIP. Last year was a 358 ERA and a 223 FIP. The defense hurt him. This year, he was a lot closer to that spread, right? 2023, when they got him from the White Sox, I think part of the reason Atlanta went after him was he had a 6.79 ERA, but his FIP was a 3.58. Like, in Chicago, his field independent pitching was a 3.38 for his career, but his ERA was off, especially those last couple of years, was often not good. So that's why they went out and got him. But at $9.5 million, that's a tough pill to swallow for a guy that right now, and we'll get to it, but right now, if you think about it, he's what, 5th in your pecking order in the bullpen? Yes, he's a lefty ground ball specialist. You need those guys. But at the same time, that's a lot to pay for a lefty ground ball specialist who's not a guy you're throwing in the 7th or 8th inning. He's not closing. He's not throwing the 8th. He's probably not throwing the 7th. He's coming in situationally to get you out of an inning with a ground ball because you've got 2 runners on and 1 out. A lot of money. He's probably back unless they trade him. Austin Cox is likely not back. Again, no issues with Austin Cox. I happen to think he's a decent player. I like him. You're just in a situation where you have a lot of guys here. If your 40-man roster was at 40, you probably keep Austin Cox, right? And, but he did struggle in Gwinnett. He had like a 4.61 ERA in Gwinnett. So he wasn't that good for you in the minors. And you have too many guys. Alexis Diaz, I don't think he comes back. I honestly don't think Alexis Diaz is back. He looked okay with Atlanta. Granted, it was 3 appearances. He gave up 3 runs, no hits because he walked 5. He struck out 5. He looked okay from the perspective of the stuff looked good. But I don't think Alexis Diaz is back. Yes, he has options. He made $4.5 million in arbitration last year. He's probably, arbitration salaries can go down. You can go down up to 20%. If it gets to the point where he doesn't agree to a deal before the filing deadline, I think Atlanta's just going to non-tender him and let him walk. I don't think they even want to risk committing a couple $1 million to him, despite the fact he has minor league options, simply because if the Los Angeles Dodgers give up on you as a pitcher, and they're a very, very good pitching development organization, you're probably not fixable to anybody else. You're probably gone. Alexis Diaz, gone. I think that's 2 I counted off the roster so far. Making good time here. Dylan Dodd. Dylan Dodd is absolutely back. Lefty reliever. He's a cutter guy. Shout out, big cutter propagandist over here. But you're going to need lefties in your pen, and I think Dylan Dodd is back. Dane Dunning is an open question to me. If they only see him as a reliever, I don't think he's back. I think they try to either package him in a deal, and this may be one of those clear-out deals where they try to pick 3 or 4 guys and send them to a bad team in return for 1 player. But if they only see him as a reliever, I think he's gone. If they think he can stick in Gwinnett as a starter and be a rotation option, I do think it's possible he comes back. So I'm going to count him as being out for now because I think ultimately, as much as I like Dane Dunning just in general, I do think they probably end up thinking of him as a reliever and not a starter. And if that's the case, I don't think that he is back. Bryce Elder is back unless you package him in a trade. We've talked about this before. You are out of options. That is the problem here, is he doesn't have any options. So he's probably going to have to be in the pen, which is less than ideal. And so for that reason, I think they try to use his hot finish to the year and try to package him in a trade this winter. I don't know what kind of trade that would be, if they're going to try to acquire a shortstop, if Kim opts out, if they're going to try to get another starter. We've talked about maybe Sonny Gray, maybe a Pablo Lopez. I don't know. But Bryce Elder's back unless he gets traded. So I'm going to count him. Hayden Harris, absolutely back. We've got news on him in just a few minutes, actually. Deisabel Hernandez, I think, is back. There's no reason to get rid of him. Plenty of team control. Yeah, the walks are an issue. He's still a work in progress. He feels like a guy who's going to be up and down quite a bit until you can figure it out. Grant Holmes, clearly coming back. Not even worth... The role is the question, right? Is he a reliever? Is he a starter? That's the question, but he's coming back. Raisel Iglesias is technically a free agent and likely to, and because of that, I should take him off of this. It increasingly feels to me like they're going to try to re-sign him. And that they may be able to get a discount on him because of the poor first half. But either way, it increasingly feels to me like they're at least going to try to re-sign him. So I'm going to, at least temporarily, take him off of this list and say we've cleared 4 spots now. But I do feel like they're going to eventually bring him back as the closer. Joe Jimenez, clearly back. Pierce Johnson, they're going to pick up the option. He's going to be back. I think he's fine. He's a fine 7th inning guy. I don't think he's a closer. I don't love the idea of him in the 8th, but I think he's perfectly fine in the 7th inning, right? If your starter can give you a quality start, you can go Johnson, and then you can go Jimenez closer, right? Like, that's easy thing to do. I think you're fine with bringing him back. Tyler Kinley, I also think he's back. These guys, very similar career path. Atlanta got Johnson from Colorado and had him ramp up the curveball. Atlanta got Kinley from Colorado, had him ramp up the slider. Both of them have been among the best pitchers in baseball post-trade, like in that season. Giancarlo Lara, clearly back. He'll start off in Gwinnett, but he's back. Dylan Lee, also clearly back, right? Ronaldo Lopez is back. Alek Manoah. I wrote about this morning on the newsletter, bravestoday.com. I can see a path to them fixing him. As of now, I think he's back, but that could change by the end of spring. I think as of now, they want to hold a roster spot for him, but that could change by the end of spring. So stay tuned for that one. If you want to read the details on how to fix him, by the way, that's all at bravestoday.com. Charlie Morton is clearly gone. That's 5 spots you've opened up so far. Roldy Munoz is back. He's a reliever. He's a prospect. Plenty of team control. No reason to get rid of him. Joel Payamps, I think, is back. Small sample size. He's looked good with Atlanta. And reliever production is so volatile from year to year that it's entirely possible that he just had a bad year with Milwaukee and has looked better since he's been in Atlanta. I think he's back. This was just them taking advantage of a team that could not afford to carry a guy on their 40-man roster because they're a postseason team and they had to get a more helpful player in that spot. Chris Sale, Spencer Schwellenbach, AJ Smith-Shawver, duh. They're all sticking around. No question here. News on Chris Sale in the 3rd segment, too. Hunter Stratton's one of those guys that feels like he has utility. The question is, can you manage to keep him through? He's only ever been a reliever. 2.20 ERA in 16 1/3 innings for you in the majors this year. You grabbed him off of, I think it was off of waivers, or maybe it was a minor trade. Yeah, it was like a cash considerations trade from the Pirates after I think they DFA'd him. You probably try to pass him through. I assume you try to pass him through. So we'll count him on the not part of the 40-man roster group. Spencer Strider, here. Jose Suarez, they've passed him through waivers before. They probably try it again. That's 6. Herson Waldrop is here. Joey Wentz, I think, is in line for the long man roll out of the pen. It probably, he may be packaged into one of those trades. Again, out of options. Guys out of options sometimes get moved. And it may depend on what happens to Grant Holmes. If Grant Holmes is a starter, Joey Wentz is your long man out of the pen. If Grant Holmes is in the pen, do you have room for both Grant Holmes and Joey Wentz as long men in the pen with the other names we've already mentioned? Nathan Wiles, they're going to try to pass him through. I don't see them valuing him as a starter. They gave him exactly 1 appearance. He allowed 3 runs on 4 hits. I do think he's been pretty good in AAA. 3.04 ERA, made 19 starts through 112 2/3 innings. I just don't think they're going to see him as a starter. I think they see him as a reliever, and so because of that, I think they try to pass him through waivers. Catchers, Drake Baldwin, obviously here. Sean Murphy, here. Sandy Leone, I believe, is a free agent. He may not be back, so we'll give them a spot there. Chucky Robinson, they grabbed him off of waivers from the Dodgers. He is the new 3rd catcher in the organization on the 40-man roster, so he's probably back. Infielders, Ozzie Albies, obviously back. Let's just go ahead and do Matt Olson, Austin Riley, clearly back. Nick Allen, I think they try to keep Nick Allen. If Ha-Seong Kim stays, you have Kim and Allen as your infield options. And Allen can be your backup at second, at short, whatever. The question is going to be Allen or Brujan. Brujan doesn't have options. He also has more defensive versatility and a slightly better bat. Allen's the great defender. Maybe they package Allen in a trade. They wouldn't get much, but a lot of teams need a very good defender. I like Nick Allen. I think a Nick Allen City Connect jersey would just slap. So I'm here for keeping Nick Allen. But we'll see what happens. Nacho Alvarez, obviously here. Luke Williams, they probably try to pass him through waivers. They've done it a couple times before. I imagine they clear a spot from him too. Brett Wisely, I think they try to pass him through waivers as well. I don't think they keep him for a spot. He wasn't even the full-time starter. When Ozzie went down, he was sharing time with Nick Allen. Ronald Acuña Jr. is here. Michael Harris is here. Jurickson Profar is here. Eli White stays. I think they like him as a fourth outfielder. The utility for him is going to be if they sign a starting caliber outfielder to rotate through the outfield mix and DH, then what's his role? Is he just the utility guy and the pinch runner? Carlos Rodriguez stays. He's in the minors. Jared Kelenic is gonzo. I would be shocked if there's still stuff in his locker right now. I'm sure he's gone. Jake Fraley is the big question mark to me. I think if they sign an outfielder, he's gone. But if they don't plan on signing an outfielder, they probably try to find a way to keep Jake Fraley, but they might try to get him in Gwinnett. Marcell Ozuna, obviously gone. You can see there's ways to clear space. And depending on what you do in the middle infield, right? If Ha-Seong Kim leaves for at least a little while, you keep Nick Allen while you try to figure out your other options. There's things to do here. There's ways to make spots. And that's without even really making any tough decisions, like in your middle infield where you got to figure out Brujan versus Allen, things like that. In just a minute, there's a little bit of interesting news and notes from around the league on Braves players. We'll talk about those next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby. I want to break down a little bit of news that we got on some Braves players. The first thing is All-MLB voting. So they have an All-MLB team, and it's just the best players at every position. And they're going to announce this in mid-November. So voting goes through... It's weird. They're announcing it in mid-November. Voting only goes through October 10th. So MLB.com/all-MLB. You click on ballot. And the Braves have, I believe it's 4 different players who are nominated. At first base, Matt Olson is one of 11 first basemen nominated for the All-MLB team. Your options are Pete Alonso, Michael Busch of the Cubs, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Nick Kurtz, Matt Olson, Spencer Torkelson of the Tigers, Jonathan Aranda of the Rays, Freddie Freeman, Bryce Harper, Josh Naylor, traded to the Mariners at the trade deadline, and Vinny Pasquantino of the Royals. Matt's average is actually kind of surprisingly far down in this list. He's tied for 6th with Pete Alonso because Aranda hit 316. Freddie hit 295. Naylor hit 295. Nick Kurtz hit 290. Vlad hit 292, right? But Olson has 29 homers, 95 RBI. He's actually 3rd on this list in RBI. Alonso had 126. Pasquantino had 113. Matt's 3rd in RBI. So there you go. The other thing here on this is Olson lapped all these guys in defense. And a lot of voters don't care about the defense. But Matt Olson legitimately put on a defensive clinic all year at the Cold Corner. He was an amazing defender. One of my favorite things to watch this year was just Matt Olson working around the bag. Tons of fun. So he's a nominee in there. The next thing, second base, Ozzie's not listed. None of your shortstops are listed. Third base, Austin Riley is not an option. There's 9 guys nominated. Austin Riley's not one of them. But when you get to catcher, there are 10 catchers who are nominated. Drake Baldwin is one of the 10. He finished 274 average, 19 homers, 80 RBI. From an average perspective, he is 6th out of 10, 274. Shea Langeliers at 277. Dylan Dingler of the Tigers and Hunter Goodman of the Rockies at 278. Alejandro Kirk of the Blue Jays at 282, Will Smith of the Dodgers at 296. Those 80 RBI are third in this group. Cal Raleigh obviously had 60 homers and 125 RBI for the Mariners. He also hit 247. I'm pretty sure that's like the lowest batting average for any non-pitcher MVP if he wins MVP. And then Hunter Goodman had 91 RBI. After that, it's Baldwin with 80. So Drake Baldwin nominated. For DH, you have 13 guys in here. Ozuna's not one of them. We know he had a rough year. Outfield, there's a bunch of guys. I can't count all of these, but Ronald is in there. 290 average, 21 homers, 42 RBI. Remember, he only played part of a season. 3 players will get selected out of this group. I don't think that Ronald ends up getting this. It would be nice, but I don't think he ends up being one of these 3. My guess as of now is going to be Juan Soto gets it. 43 homer, 38 RBI. I'm sorry, 43 homer, 38 stolen bases, 105 RBI. Soto probably gets a spot. Judge definitely gets a spot. And then that third one could be PCA. There's a lot of options here for who it could be. Tyler Soderstrom hit 25 homers. Kyle Stowers hit 288 with 25 homers. A lot of options here. Tatis, 25 homers, 32 stolen bases, hit almost 270. I just don't think that Ronald gets in over some of these guys, even though I think he's deserving. Starting pitchers, the last place you had a Brave, and Chris Sale is in here. 5 players are selected for this. This is just, and then 2 relievers will get picked, which no Braves were nominated. But I think Chris Sale has a shot to get into this top 5. Skeens feels like a lock. Crochet feels like a lock. Yamamoto feels like a lock. Skubal feels like a lock. I think your 5th spot, that's the question. Could Chris Sale jump in over somebody else? So, again, MLB.com/all-MLB. You can go vote. I think you can vote like every day, and it runs through October 10th. So, 4 Braves nominated. Would love to see if they get in there. And then, not a voting thing, but just as selected by either MLB or the minor league coaches, the All-MLB first and second prospect team were announced. And on the first team, all prospect team, Hayden Harris. They had, and the way that works, similar idea. They have a DH. They have 1 at each position in the infield. They have 3 outfielders, 2 starters, and 1 reliever. So it's not 5 starters and 2 relievers. It's 2 starters and 1 reliever. He was the all prospect first team reliever. And reminder what Hayden Harris did again. In the minors, 0.52 ERA in 43 appearances, 52 innings with 79 strikeouts, 19 walks, gave up 1 home run on the season and 3 earned runs. Now in the majors, 2 2/3 across 3 different outings, 3 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, did not strike anybody out. The big question here is going to be, can Hayden Harris translate the low vertical approach angle fastball into whiffs and strikeouts at the major league level? If you want to know more about Hayden Harris, we dropped a special bonus episode a couple weeks ago on that, so you can go check that out. The second team, there were no Braves, right? And the question here would have been, could one of the pitchers, one of the starters get in? You have to remember there's only 4 total starting pitcher spots on these all prospect teams. It's probably kind of a mistake to only have 4 of these guys recognized. So Jonah Tong of the Mets and Griffin Herring of the Rockies, they got the first team. It's a righty and a lefty, right? That's how they do this. And then the second team was Trey Savage of the Blue Jays, who was called up and made some starts late in the year. He'll be on their playoff roster. And Thomas White of the Marlins. Again, they probably should pick a full sled of 5, right? Maybe 3 righties, 2 lefties or something, instead of just recognizing 4 total starting pitchers. But you have to imagine that a guy like a J.R. Ritchie had an argument if there was a 10-person thing to potentially be in that 10-person thing. He went from high A to triple A, 26 starts, 140 innings, 140 strikeouts, 2.64 ERA. You have to think that he'd have an argument to be in the top 10 minor league pitchers. Do me a favor, if you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop the next episode. Also, bravestoday.com, free or paid, those memberships do help us out a ton, especially as we're getting to the off season, and I'm going to be reaching out to potential sponsors, trying to show them, hey, here are the viewers of the pod, here's the audio subscribes to the pod, here's the number of subscribers to the written work, as we try to reach out to advertisers this off season and see if we can get on a little bit more sponsorships so that we can do more and better things with Braves Today. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.